Lifers TLC. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jay.
And today we're super excited because we have Marie with us. And Marie is not a donor or a recipient. She worked, she doesn't currently, but she used to work in the transplant and donation field. So we're super excited, Marie, to have you today and to tell us your
thank
journey.
you. Thank you.
So can you just tell us a little bit about your background and who you are?
My background, so I was born and raised in Sweden, and I moved here 24 years ago, and it was love that brought me here. And I was a stay-at-home mom, and then after divorce, I went back to school because I really knew I wanted to work in the OR and make a difference. And so I was a surgical technologist for a few years before I had this awesome opportunity to work in organ procurement. And I did that for 6 years. And then it's a very stressful job. And I kind of had to find a new balance in my life, like a work-life blend, because it was really work when I was working for the organ side. So I left, but I wanted to go to a hospital that still did transplants. So I went to one of the big trauma hospitals here in town and got to assist during kidney transplants. And then I was there for just a year. And then I had the opportunity to go to a different surgery, like more of a surgery center, a day surgery center.
Okay.
And the best part is I'm still in transplant because we do corneal transplants.
Wow.
So
awesome.
That's my story.
So you are definitely in the transplant field, even still today. That's so awesome. So you went back to school, like you said, to become a surgical technologist. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay.
The surgical tech.
A surgical tech. Okay. So when you decided you wanted to start working with organ procurement, did you have to go back to school for any additional schooling with that? Or is that kind of all included in that degree?
Well, it was included in that degree because my role in the organ procurement organization was to be a surgery recovery coordinator. So I was the person that was in the OR or went out with the procurement team for the local hospitals. So I would fly all over the country to help procure organs and flush the organs and just be like that person in the OR that would have the communication with the attending surgeon back at the transplant hospital. So you kind of, yes, you need to know what you're doing in the OR, but at the same time, you got to be pretty assertive, be able to hold your own because you're working in ORs with a lot of different teams that are coming for different organs. And you need to be able to hold your own and make sure everything moves fast and have good communication.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you, what do you feel like for anybody who may be interested in organ procurement and kind of wondering if that is a field that they would want to get into, what do you feel like those top couple skills that you have that really benefited you during your time doing that work?
You really need to believe in the mission. And our mission was everybody shares the gift of life. And you have to believe in that because when that phone rings at 2 a.m. and they say, so-and-so has accepted a heart, you got to be in Topeka, Kansas at 4 o'clock in the morning. You need to be really motivated. And another thing, you need to be really organized. You need to be flexible. And you just need to have a really good attitude. And most of all, you got to be grateful. You got to be grateful for the job that you have because I always looked at it like, yes, I am helping the recipient to, get a second chance, but I'm actually there to honor the donor's last wish. And that's what kept me going.
That's a beautiful way to say that. I really like that.
Yeah.
It really is. And it really is a beautiful way to honor them. And that's so awesome that you had that opportunity. So during your time that you worked there, do you mind about how many surgeries or procurements do you think you did?
Oh, wow.
Too many to count?
Well, I would say on an average a year, I was probably out between 40 and 50 procurements.
Okay.
And then I had 7 other coworkers that did the same job as me. And I would say they did about the same. And then we also covered living kidney donation at the 2 of our local hospitals. So we did that. And yeah, I would say about 45 to 50.
That, I mean, you know, when you think of how many days in a year, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is, especially when, you know, that's your full-time job. And so how long, you know, I know that, you know, obviously depending on how far you have to travel for a procurement, or, you know, the type of organ, I'm sure varies kind of, but like on average, how long from like, okay, this is what time you have to be at X hospital until you were done with your shift or done with that procurement, would you think that kind of, how long?
Well, that all depended on a lot of different things. Let's say we went for a heart, and I would say that would be about 12 hours door to door. But if I was in charge in our area of a procurement where other teams came to our hospital, then I could be gone for 18 to 22, 24 hours. So my calls, I was on call. I took call 3,900 hours a year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment.
That is.
Huge commitment. And yeah, it takes a toll on everybody, including my family too. So I always said, you know, every month we would have a touch base at work, and they would always say, who are you thankful for? Or who do you want to give a kudos to? I always said my family, because without them, I could have never done it, or without my friends helping out with my little daughter and picking her up at school. So, I mean, the picture is so much bigger than just a heart or a liver or whatever organs come into the hospital. There's so much commitment from so many people.
Sounded like you need a whole community to really support you because of not only the hours, but you mentioned the stress level. What were some of the things you did to manage that stress and be able to still perform?
You know what? I actually had a trauma therapist that I would go see, and that was not by choice in the beginning, but I came back from a very traumatic donor recovery. And I was a small child. And after that, I was just so heartbroken, and I thought I was going to quit my job. So then someone at work suggested that I would go see this trauma therapist. And then I hung on to her, and I would go see her, I would say maybe every 6 weeks. And I think that helped a lot. And then also when I was off from work, I just turned off the work phone, and I just tried to stay disconnected. So yeah, that's hard. I mean, I missed my son's high school graduation because I actually had a vacation day, but there was and I can talk about this because it was in the news. Mayo had its first face transplant, and I ended up being a part of that. And they called when my oldest son was just about to walk, and then I had to leave. And you know, and that was heartbreaking. I mean, I felt so bad, and I was so sad, and I couldn't tell anyone anything. And then I would say 9 months later, it ended up being in the news. And Noah, my oldest one, called me, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you're like on the front page of Newsweek with this whole team." And I said, "That's what I did the day you graduated high school." And he was like, "You are the most wonderful person, and I love you for it. And you were better off being there." And, you know, so I really am. I'm so thankful for my children's support. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. But there were some big sacrifices doing this job.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long, you know, either just within your group that you used to work with, or I don't know if you have like a greater community or if people really talk. Do you know about how, like, average, how long do people typically stay in that kind of a job?
Well, they say the burnout rate is about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Because like I said, almost 4,000 hours a year.
Yeah.
And they can tell you, and I would say most of the procurements happen in the middle of the night because hospitals don't have time for us during the day because they have their own surgeries that they're trying to push through. And then you have an attending surgeon that is accepting a heart. I'm just using you as an example here. They don't want to do that surgery at 4 o'clock in the morning. They want to make sure that they have their, A team on at 6:30 in the morning and do the transplant during the day in case there are any complications. So a lot of the stuff is done during the nights.
So that just throws in a whole nother element of basically being a night, on call, but mostly night shift and trying to make sure that you're well rested.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got pulled over once driving home from work. The cop thought I was drunk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was in my blue scrubs and he was like, ma'am, what's going on? And I said, well, I just worked for 27 hours. So he escorted me home. So, yeah.
Very nice officer to do that and make sure that you were home safe and sound.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Very demanding. I don't know if I didn't realize how demanding just that career path was. It's, you said burnout in 2 years. It's just, that's something that you just don't think about. I don't know. Did you think before getting into it, did you kind of know what you were biting off? Or?
Nope. No idea. I'm amazed that I lasted for 6 years, but I still say those 6 years were the most amazing 6 years. I mean, it made me a better person, a better mom, a better friend. I mean, you just start looking at the smaller things in life and you enjoy every little thing around you, because there was one donor family that just said goodbye to their loved one and all they would want would be 5 more minutes. So I made sure that I always had 5 minutes extra for my kids, or extra time, or laundry could wait, or you know what, let's order pizza and then let's head out and do something. So, I mean, there was a lot of positive things too, but 6 years was a long time to do it.
And then, so then when you left that though, you still were working, you said, with kidney transplants then, right?
Yep. And then I got to be on the other side, which was kind of fun, because then when the organ procurement team would come to the hospital, then I knew exactly what was going on, and I could help them get a kidney on a pump. That you can put kidneys on a perfusion pump just so they can last a little bit longer. I get to see it on the other side. I get to see the recipient being wheeled into the OR, being super excited. And I would always walk up to the recipient, hold their hand, and together we would thank the donor. And I just thought that was pretty amazing. And on the other hand, when I did organ procurements, when the procurement was done, and now you just have a body that's laying there on the operating table, I would always go up to that person and put my hand on their forehead and say thank you, because that's the most amazing gift. So
that's awesome, and how respectful and honoring you were and continue to be through just your life now too, because you've gotten to see it. So question for you. So how do you feel like working in this field has changed you? I mean, you said, you spend more time with your family and those kinds of things, but do you feel like your outlook has changed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I should say too, that before the surgery would start for the procurement, we would read a letter from the family, from the donor family, to the whole OR team, and we called it the moment of silence. So I would read something about their loved one, and every time I would just take that with me, and I would just say, okay, what can I learn from this person today? Or how can I just go home and be a better Marie? It's very humbling. It's very humbling to work with people that give such a wonderful gifts. And yeah, I really try to be more in tune, and I try not to be the person that say I'm busy all the time. If someone needs help, I try to be there. Yeah, I would have to say that those 6 years and still being a big advocate for donation, I mean, it's just humbling. I mean, it's amazing.
What was your knowledge? What was your foreknowledge about donation and transplant prior to starting that first job?
Oh, I would say 0. I thought I knew because I had watched, whatever shows on TV, whatever medical shows that were on, and you think that's how it goes. I'm like, I need a liver stat, and let's call UNOS and get a liver, and then when you get into it, it's like, well, that is not how that goes. And there's a lot of waiting at small little airports, sitting in cold airplanes, somewhere in North Dakota. Yeah, sleeping wherever you could sleep. Eat a gas station sandwich in Chicago if you could find one. I mean, it's just, I had no idea, but I worked with the most amazing people, and it was worth it every single time. It really was. It was crazy. So I had no idea.
I think a lot of people think that this, like you said, these shows we see like Grey's Anatomy or whatever it might be, the glamorous, well, like you say, snap your finger. After the commercial break, they have the organ, right? But it's just a lot more that goes into it, and it's just, I've just listening to your story, I've just learned so much, and like you said, just some of the intrinsic rewards that you get from that you least expect from, your job is just, like you said, it's very humbling, and as a recipient, it's been humbling for me as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, a lot of people will say, oh, you're that person that I get on the airplane with a cooler. And I was like, yeah, but that's like 30 seconds of my 18-hour day.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to understand either. I always say, if I can just make them understand one thing, when they say, oh, you went out on an organ harvest, I always made sure to say it's called procurement. And if that's all you take away from my conversation about organ donation, just call it a procurement, then I'm fine. But it's, it's funny. Oh, so you're the one that flies around with a cooler. I'm like, oh, I wish that was all it was.
Yeah. They see that little piece that they I'm sure that's like their little recognition from shows and from all that kind of stuff that, they don't, people don't get to see the true side of what all of this entails. So,
yeah.
Wow. So can you tell me what do you feel like is the biggest challenge to a job like organ procurement?
Biggest challenge for me, or biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge that you had, sorry. In the job.
The not being able to plan like throughout the day, like I would always have 2 cell phones. I would have my personal cell phone and a work cell phone, and I would go to Target and go shopping, and they would call, and then you had to drop everything and just leave. Or if I was going to go out for dinner with a family, then we had to drive 2 cars, and not be able to be home for Christmas, or I would say those were some big challenges at times. But again, I got to know a lot of the transplant coordinators at the different hospitals, and they would call me and say, we accepted lungs out of Nevada. And I would say, okay, I'm a target right now. Can you just push the OR by a couple hours? I just got to finish up some stuff, and you learn how to kind of speak up. Every now and then I would say that. I was like, I just need to just wrap up and run home because I haven't been home and I need to get stuff done. But everybody worked well together. So then they would always say, sure. We'll just have the airplane go at 5 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. But stuff like that. That was hard.
It's important to have that little work balance. I can see where you can lose track of that, but just to have some kind of sense of normalcy, you know, it's very important. So,
yeah.
And what do you think was the best part? What was the most rewarding part of being?
Oh, working with every single donor. Every single donor. Oh, I'm going to get choked up. That said yes, or the family that said yes. I mean, it's beyond anything. That's when you know that there is hope on earth, that people really want to do the best, and that's their last wish. And it's just so amazing. And I get to be part of that.
And what about when you were working on the other side with recipients, either kidney as well as then you said cornea, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how was that? What do you think the best part of that is?
The best part?
Yeah.
I mean, just to see the excitement and the just how grateful people are, you know, and understanding that there's a gift that just bought them more time with their family. Maybe not for a corneal transplant, because that's, you know, you'll still live, but you know, for a kidney, I mean, that's huge. So it's pretty cool to be on the other side too. And especially when you tell them that, you know, I used to do this job, but on the other side. So yeah.
That's awesome. And what do you think the biggest challenge of this side of it, of the transplant side is?
Well, the biggest challenge is always like, you know, that someone had to die for that organ to be available. Oh, absolutely. I mean, do you never get used to that? It's sad, but at the same time, you know, something good came out of it. But it can be challenging at times too, especially when you find out how that person passed away. Or so a lot of times I just don't want to know. And a lot of the times too, when I worked in organ procurement, if I wasn't working, or even if I was on call, I would not look we had something called this board where potential donors would be listed, and I would never look. I only looked when it was my time to go out to work, because it can drag you down really, really fast with all the sad stories. It's a lot of, no, sad. I would be on death overload at times. And then that's when I would see my trauma therapist.
I'm so glad that you had the trauma.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm so glad that you had the trauma therapist, and that you were, that you had somebody that you could talk to, and that you could really be open with, and, you know, work through all of those things. I think that's so important. And I hope anybody who maybe wanting to get into this type of a career, or is there right now and like, how am I doing this, that they can hear there is somebody who you could talk to, and to reach out and find somebody. Because I'm sure, I can't imagine dealing with knowing all that you knew day to day. You know, like you said, you didn't even want to look unless you were going out. So you know, I can't imagine how heavy that would be on my own personal
No, and then it's like what I told you about that one time when I actually thought I was going to quit, because I went out on a really bad procurement, or just a very, very tragic way of how that child passed away. My trauma therapist, she said, why don't you get in touch with the attending surgeon that did the transplant? Because the organ went to a baby. And I called him, and he knew why I called. And he said, you know what, Marie, why don't you come to the ICU tomorrow, and I'm going to have you meet the family and the baby. And that's 6 years ago. And I'm still in touch with this family, and I get photos of their little girl. And 3 years ago, we were at my prior job, and had a memory, like a memory for the donor, and had the recipient's name engraved in a wall as a thank you to the donor. And that was important to me. That's something that I wanted to do. So I invited them, and they came, and we're still in touch.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Just, I'm sure just to see the other side of it.
Yeah. So it really came full circle.
Yeah. And then one of my last questions for you today is, we know that there are so many myths and misconceptions around organ donation and transplantation. Do you have one that you could debunk for us today?
Oh my gosh. People think that just because it says you're an organ donor and you were in an accident, that the hospital will call right away and take your organs without trying to save your life. Mm-hmm. And that is not true. That hospital will do whatever they can to save that person's life before the phone call comes to the organ procurement organization saying that there is a donor. And it can be days or even weeks sometimes that they are trying to save that person's life. So I think that's what I've run into the most is, oh, you guys are just waiting for the organs, aren't you? As soon as someone has been in an accident. And I was like, no, that is not how that works.
That's a great one. We hear that one a lot, and to hear it from a medical professional though, who's been in this field and can say from that end too, that is absolutely not true, is amazing. So thank you so much for debunking that one for us.
Yeah.
And my last question for you is, if there's anybody out there who's looking at possible career or job opportunities in procurement, or working on a transplant team or procurement team, what words do you have for them?
Do it. No, seriously, do it. Look it up. I think there is 57 different OPOs, organ procurement organizations in the country, and they're always hiring. And if you're in the medical field as a nurse or a PA or a surgical tech or whatever, just apply and try to see if you can get a job, and do it. It's extremely rewarding, and it's something that you will have with you for the rest of your life.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Even though it can be time consuming and you're living on call, just to hear that, you'd still say do it is awesome. And I'm so glad that there's people with generous hearts and open minds and the ability, like yourself and so many others, to do this profession, to help people get organs when they need them, and to be able to, like you said, honor that donor is so amazing that you are so committed to doing that. And that now, even though you're on the other side, you work in transplant and everything, that you're still an advocate and out there promoting Donate Life and working so hard. That's so
absolutely
awesome. Did you have any other questions today?
Well, no, I just wanted to add here in closing, I'm just so thankful for you to come on a show and share your story. We talk to donor families, we talk to recipients, we kind of talk to a lot of the community. We never heard it from someone who worked in the field, who had an intimate knowledge of day-to-day and what truly goes on. There's kind of a shield between the public and the medical practice and medical practitioners. So we really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. And even the way you found me, that was my way to be able to share what I did. And I thought social media was a great way to do it. And I've talked to a lot of amazing people, and now I get to meet you guys and do this today. And being Swedish, I was invited to talk about organ donation in America, in Sweden. because that's a little bit different how it's run over there than what it's like over here. So yeah, no, I appreciate you both. And yeah, and I'm super thankful to your donor, and you look great. Mike, way to go.
Thank you. I'm just, every day is a blessing, every day is a blessing.
It is.
I just, you never take it for granted because it's a gift you can never pay back, no matter what you do. So it's, it's just a very humbling. I mean, if I had to use one word, it's just really humbling. Just be able to receive not just a heart, but also a liver. So it's just amazing.
Yeah. That I mean, it's because of you and your donor. That's why I did my job. Absolutely.
You know what? I know we were in closing, but I would love to hear the difference between U.S. and Sweden. You mentioned there was a difference, some difference in.
Oh, it
protocol.
is. I mean, they just have a totally different approach how they reach out to donor families. Like we have family care coordinators that go out and talk to families and guide them and support them throughout the process. And in Sweden, it's a little bit different. Everything is kind of on the ICU staff at the hospital, and they have to do everything. Here, we're very lucky that we have people that are trained specifically for donation and can support the families. And so it's just, there's some big differences. That could be a whole new show.
Yeah, it truly, like it could I'm be. Thinking to myself, like you said, we, here they have actual people trained, but there's the ICU that handles all of that, a lot of those duties and responsibilities. So I'm sure that's a whole other show we could do.
Yeah, it is, because here in America, you have the brain dead donor, and then you have the DCD donor, the donation after cardiac death. Mm-hmm. And in Sweden, they just started doing DCD, I would say maybe 2 years ago on a trial. And I mean, we're so far ahead here that I think there's even been hearts now that have been transplanted from a DCD donor. So yeah, so there's some differences.
It's amazing how we all live on the same planet, but things run so differently in different places.
Yeah, they do. No, they really do.
All right. Was there anything that we didn't get a chance to ask you today that you would like to share with us?
No, I think you guys asked some really good questions. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Keep on doing this job, because even if there's just one person that will say yes on their driver's license, or let a loved one know, oh, I should say this. I've talked to my kids at the dinner table about organ donation. I wanted them to tell me if they wanted to be donors. And some people would tell me that, oh, that's so wrong to talk about. I was like, no, people need to talk about it, because if it's not on your driver's license, it is really good to know, though, if that person wants to be a donor or not. So I always encourage everybody, just talk about it. Because when, if something happens and your family has to make that decision in the hospital, that's a really tough decision to make. I've met a lot of families that were so relieved when they found out that their loved one had said yes already. So just talk about it. Just don't make it weird. Just say, hey, I want to be a donor. Or you say, you know what, I don't want to be a donor. I mean, I had to respect that too. But talk about it. I think that's really important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that as well. And that's such a great, that's a conversation that I've had with a couple of my children. Some of them aren't quite at the age where they're totally understand that, they have a general understanding, but they can't, it's kind of like, oh, okay, like,
how old are they?
Whatever they need, it's still a conversation, ongoing conversation that I need to have with them. But I have a couple that are old enough that I've had those conversations with, and they can be a little bit uncomfortable at times, but I'm super glad that I've had them, and I know what their wishes would be, and they know what my wishes are.
Yeah.
So that we're all on the same page, and hopefully there isn't a tragic reason why I would need that information, but if there ever is, I have it, and that's fantastic. So
yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah. Well, so thank you so much for joining us today. And
Yeah.
thank you everybody for watching. We are so excited that you came, and thank you again, Marie. I'm Laura.
I'm Jay.
And we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us today.
Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next guest.
We need your help to spread support and awareness for organ transplant donation.
Please share this video and channel with your friends.
Tell someone something that you learned or heard from today's guest.
Get in touch with us if you'd like to join us as a guest.
See you next time.
Peace.